I grabbed a couple of PVC pipes in 2 sizes and T-connector from my local store. I started by cutting the 1.5-inch PVC pipes into 4-inch long pieces with a straight edge on one end and a 45-degree angle cut on the other. I also cut the 1/2-inch pipe into a 2-inch and 2 5-inch pieces. Then I sprayed them with multiple coats of white paint. Next, I grabbed a piece of plywood base which is 11 by 21 inches. I sanded the edges and sealed it with a clear sealer. Once the paint dried, I glued the 1.5-inch PVC pieces onto the plywood in 2 rows. You can add as many rows as you want based on your need. Then I marked the center and drilled a hole into the plywood that is about the same diameter as my small PVC pipe. Make sure not to drill all the way through. Leave about an 1/8 inch of material at the bottom. Next, add some glue onto the hole you just made. Attach the 2 long pieces to the T-connector and the small one on the other end and insert it into the hole. Next, I grabbed a 3-inch wide piece of plywood as a shelf at the bottom of the base, connected it with some wood glue and nailed it together. After the glue dried, I added a wall hanger and some felt bumpers onto the back. I hung it on the wall, added my stationeries, and now it's a cute wall-mounted organizer to store my office and craft supplies.
For today's project, we're going to head to the hardware store and grab some PVC pipe and fittings. This fitting right here is called a socket elbow. We're going to call it a corner piece. You want to make sure it's smooth on the inside of each one. This one is called a T-fitting. And then this is a 1/2-inch PVC pipe and it comes in a 10-foot length. We're going to need 4 10-foot lengths. Take the first one and you're going to cut it at 36 inches, 3 feet. I used a special PVC cutter for this. If you don't have one, you can use a hacksaw. Just make sure you clean up the edges when you're done. Cut 11 of those 3-foot pieces and then you're going to cut 2 pieces at 15.5 inches. You're going to need 2 of those. Next, you're going to have a little bit of leftover, 12-foot long. You're going to want to cut each one at 3 inches long. So you'll mark it on the 3, 6, and 9-inch mark. And that's going to give you 4 equal pieces. We're going to make sure that we have 8 of those. Again, I love using this cutter. Gives it a perfect cut. Now we're going to lay it out. The way it lays out is you're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those 3-foot pieces on there with corner pieces and your T's as you see outlined here. What you're going to do is start at one end and go ahead and insert the 3-foot piece into one of those corner pieces, just like that. Put it on both sides. This is going to be the top of our rack. Then you grab one of those 3-inch pieces that we had and you're going to start inserting the T's just like you see here. Go ahead and do the whole thing and just start inserting the pieces as you lay them out. I did not use any glue on this. If you've ever worked with PVC pipe, you're going to realize that fittings are really tight. If you want to use glue, go ahead, put a little bit on there. You don't need to make it watertight. We're not using this to carry water. This is going to be a special rack that we're going to use. Put all the pieces as you see. You can twist and turn as you need to make sure it comes out smooth and straight. So you're going to have 5 3-foot pieces across. You're going to have 6 of those T's and 4 of those corner sockets. All of them are going to face up on the corners because that's where our legs are going to go. Once you get all the pieces together, give it a good tight fitting just like that. Watch how it sinks in and it's going to make it pretty tight. As you see here, this is the top of our rack and it looks really good. Next, we got to put in the legs to the rack. We are going to use 4 of the 3-foot pieces that we have and put those in there. Pretty easy, just push them tight and make sure they fit. Next, turn the rack upside down. Go ahead and put one of the corner pieces in on each of those legs. And remember those 2 15.5-inch pieces we had? They will fit perfectly right in the ends there and hold the legs together. You're going to have 2 3-foot pieces left over. Again, put all the fittings together. It's coming together just great. Remember, if you want to glue, go ahead and put them in there. Then you can give it a coat of paint if you like. You can leave it white. I like to give it a paint just to make sure it matches. And when we come back, I'm going to show you everything you can use it for. And this rack is so versatile. Look at that. You can use it when you're cleaning out your car, or you can use it on the side of the pool to keep your pool towels dry. I'm glad you joined us, and I can't wait to see you guys again.
I finally got that hot tub that I've always wanted in the back porch, but
neighbors are kind of close. First thing I'm going to do is get this free pallet I got, and it actually is in really good shape, but I've got to remove all the nails to use the boards. So I'm going to use my crowbar and my hammer, and I'm going to go through and very carefully loosen some of the boards, but you can't do the whole thing all at once. You got to work your way up and down and go back and forth to loosen the nails. Don't try to pull it all off at one time. You'll crack the boards. The reason I want to use this is as a free pallet, it's going to save me a lot of money on all the boards. Once you work your way up and down, look at that. It comes right out and it's easy to use. But we got to get rid of those nails. So all you got to do is turn it over. Go ahead and tap those nails on one side. Throw it back over the other side. Use the claw on your hammer. You can pull it apart or just use your hands and they'll pop right out. Now you've got a ton of boards you can use. Next step is to use 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe. We're going to cut 4 pieces at 12 inches long. This is going to be the base of our privacy screen. I'm using a PVC cutter here because it gives it a nice clean cut edge. You can use a hacksaw if you need to. Now the next step is to get a T. As you can see, 2 ends are 1 1/4 and the top is actually 1 inch. So take 2 of your 12-inch pieces and you're going to place that on each side of your base. This is going to give you a base of 24 inches. Next step we got to do is once we get the 2 legs together, we're going to paint them black. Now I'm going to take the 1-inch sides that are 4 feet long, and I'm going to use those with a spacer so each board is separated the same distance. You can lay them out and eyeball them this way if you want, or you can take a straight board and use that as a guide on it getting all the slats straight. Once I do that and put them all in there, I'm going to take a 1 1/4 inch drywall screw and just drive it through the wood. And I'm going to use the same holes that I used pulling the nails out. That way we're not putting extra holes in there. As you can see, I can take the PVC pipe and bring it off the edge. It doesn't need to go all the way on the side. This one on the other side, it's already straight, ready to go. Just put it underneath. And again, you're going to pop those screws right in. Now you're going to take that base and you're going to put it on each end of your privacy screen. Now you can glue it, but I'm just going to go pop it on and it holds up really nice. The next step and the last step is to put some hooks on because I've got a great idea for it. It can hold up the towels too. So not only do I got a privacy screen, but I've got someplace to let my towels air out and dry. I hope this inspired you to build your own PVC pallet privacy screen.
Thought this curb appeal project would start in the plumbing department. To make my mosaic, I use glass gems, small tile, which I removed from the backing, large tile, which I broke into smaller pieces, and random plates, which I also broke into smaller pieces. I measured the 5-foot PVC pipe into 2 pieces. I wrapped painter's tape at my marks, which would make a straight line where I would cut. I cut a slit into the pipe using a hand saw. Then I inserted the blade of the jigsaw into the slit and cut the pipe easily into 2 pieces. I did the same thing at the bottom of the pipe so that I would have a flat end. Using a soft cloth, I wiped away any dust. Then I used heavy grit sandpaper to rough up the outside of the pipe. Then I wiped everything clean with a wet cloth. For the base of the pipe, I cut a piece of chicken wire to size and wrapped it around the bottom of the pipe. I attached the chicken wire to the pipe using duct tape. I wrapped it snugly around the pipe, making sure all the wire was covered. Now for the fun. With a plastic nut trowel, I applied mastic, which is an adhesive, to the pipe. While the mastic was still wet, I used a variety of tile, plates, and glass gems, pressing them firmly into the mastic. Once the mastic was dry, I applied the grout, pressing it into all the nooks and crannies. Once the entire pipe was grouted, I used a sponge and plain water to wipe away the excess grout. I allowed the pipes to dry 24 hours before sealing. Adding the sealer is an easy process using a sponge brush, and I covered the entire pipe with sealer. Since the pipes were tall, I added large rocks into the pipe for stability. As you can see, I have a place around our pool where nothing will grow and people can look in. These mosaic planters fill that space perfectly. They also look great on my front porch, raising up my plants for all to see. I hope this inspires you to make something for that empty space in your home.
Head to Amazon to purchase 12 by 10 glass wall mirror tiles. Take mirrors outdoors and lay them on a protective surface. Use water to spray all over the mirrors with a spray bottle, and then take the gold and antique pewter spray paint to spray along the outside edges of the mirror tiles. Allow time to dry and then wipe them off with a towel to see the aged finish. Open the pack of wood slices and pick out 8. Take outdoors to spray paint flat black on both sides. Use a level and painter's tape to create a guide to attach the mirrors in an ordered way on the wall. Take adhesive squares and glue that's included with the mirrors to attach to the back of each tile. Then place along the painter tape guideline and work horizontally and then vertically, applying the tiles securely. Once the mirrors have been attached to the wall securely, take the same glue from attaching the mirrors and use it on the back of the wood slices to place in the inside corners of the mirror tiles.
I went to Home Depot and grabbed a piece of regular plywood. I also grabbed two 2x8s to use as a cross brace on the back of the plywood to give it some stability, and use contractor screws to screw it in place. I then began cutting my lattice strips to size. Once all the pieces were cut, I began securing them into place with 1-inch brad nails. I used the mirrors as spacers to make sure not only were my boards straight, but they were also the perfect width across. Using a 3/4 by 8 piece of lattice strip, I then secured it to the sides to create a frame. Once my lattice frame was complete, I then began cutting 18 individual horizontal pieces. I then began spray painting. I let this dry for 24 hours to make sure everything was ready to go before I started installing. Then, using a combination of wood glue and liquid nails, I secured each mirror. For this project, I used 12 by 12 mirrors. You can find these in packs of 4 at IKEA or packs of 12 on Amazon.
My first step was going to my local thrift store to buy some inexpensive vases. Then I used Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and I'm going to be using some painter's tape and our Restore Chalky Finish paint. I'm going to be using a little bit of this mounting spray just to help hold the stencil in place. Use my sponge brush, go through and I add more of this pattern around this cylinder vase.
Turn your box of extra table legs and parts into something gorgeous. I'm using contact cement to attach all my pieces together. I want to paint the pieces all white. I want to distress them.
I have some clear plastic Christmas ornaments stuck on some wooden skewers and popped into an old piece of styrofoam. I'm using some Krylon sea glass spray paint, and I have some nautical netting, and I'm going to put it around the ornaments. I'm just using a little hot glue to secure it at the top. I'm just going to let the glue set, and then I'm going to trim off the tops. To finish off our faux nautical floats, I'm using some jute.
Take a bowl and cover the bottom in plastic wrap. Next, use a sponge brush and Mod Podge. Cover the entire bowl base with Mod Podge on the plastic wrap. Take rope and begin from the center of the base and wind it around towards the outer part of the bowl. Once completely dry, remove rope layer from the bowl and any excess plastic wrap.
Start to paint your pots and saucers with a matte finish paint or chalk paint. Take a paper napkin and separate the 2-ply layers. Draw a circle and cut it out with scissors. Take the saucer and brush the decoupage glue so the bottom and sides of the saucer are covered. Place the paper napkin circle and press down in the center and smooth the napkin out. Dip a small paintbrush in water and brush along the top of the saucer. Add a final layer of decoupage glue. Take a strong adhesive glue and place a ring of glue. Place the saucer on top of the bottom of the pot.
Head to Dollar Tree and pick up 9 small wood crates and stain them with wood stain. Take 3 wood stir sticks and stain them as well. Next, glue the crates together with 3 in a row. Then stack and glue each row to the top of the first row. Cut the stir sticks to the right size and hot glue them to the front bottom of each row of the crates. Add 4 wood beads with hot glue to create a base. Then use a screwdriver to attach the drawer label holders to the stir sticks.
First, we're going to repurpose a 1-gallon glass pickle jar, and then we have some decorative nautical rope. I'm measuring out vertical strips. Now, once I get all of my strips cut, I'm going to start using my glue gun to attach them on the side of the jar. And all I'm doing is I'm evenly spacing these out, and then I'll go in the middle of those sections and put a piece of rope, and then I'll do that, continue on until all 8. And I'm just going to start somewhere and kind of glue in a few places as I'm wrapping around, and then I'll glue the other 2, and it end up being a stack of 3.
I grabbed some mirror paint and thrifted light fixtures. I added a splash of vinegar to a spray bottle with water and lightly sprayed the inside of the glass light fixture. Next, I sprayed the mirror paint on the inside and drained the extra water and paint out. I sprayed the light fixture base black. Once dry, I painted antique gold rub and buff on it, leaving some of the black showing. Once dry, I added battery fairy lights.
First, we're going to spray paint. I'm using Rust-Oleum Satin Heirloom White and Rust-Oleum Stone. We're going to take some painter's tape. You kind of want to rough tear one edge of it. We're going to put this along the bottom. I'm using a craft paint and I'm just using brushed gold. You kind of want to make it look like the paint is kind of tearing and you can see underneath it.
The next time you are at a thrift store, pick up some inexpensive wicker baskets. Dip the paintbrush in the paint and then pounce. Take the brush and lightly brush the paint onto the basket in the main direction of the basket weave. Take a wicker basket with a very light finish. Spray paint the basket in light layers with an oil-rubbed bronze color. Let the basket dry completely, paint in light layers. You will notice that the paint dries very fast between layers because there is actually very little paint used.
I grabbed a scrap 4x4 from my wood pile and gave it a rough sand on all sides and edges. I evenly spaced out 18 marks, alternating on either side so the marks were staggered. I used a 3/4 inch drill bit to drill holes in each mark. I put painter's tape on the drill bit to know how far to drill for each hole, and sanded the edges of the holes, and then applied pre-stain conditioner. I used a lone sock to apply a dark brown stain of a color I had pre-mixed. While that was drying, I grabbed some white tapered candles and let them soak in very warm water but not boiling. After 5 to 10 minutes, I used a rolling pin to roll out the middle, and then I gently twisted the candle.
So first thing you need to do is find some frames that you like, and you're going to take the glass out. We're going to spray the white vinegar on one side. Grab this really cool stuff by Rust-Oleum and go over top. By using your paper towel and dabbing, it's going to create a design. Spray an even coat of the black paint. We're going to put our glass back into the frames.
The first step is just to make sure this is really clean. To start with, I want to use some gold leaf adhesive. I am just going to let this sit for about 20 minutes. Now we're going to get out the gold leaf sheets. Now you want to use a tweezer and a dry paintbrush with this. As I'm going along, I'm going to use the paintbrush and it's going to pull away any of the excess. And then we're ready to move on to the next step. Now we're going to add some paint, but we're going to paint the inside of this vase.
I sourced a couple things from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to be using the Rust-Oleum milk paint. We are going to add our hot glue, put it into the corner. So we're going to do this in all 4 corners. So once that kind of sets, we're going to flip it over and do the other side. We are going to be taking our smaller pieces and we're going to be creating an X shape. And then I'm going to come in with my hot glue gun. We are going to glue these together, painting it the same color as we did the other pieces. We are going to hot glue. All right, so we're going to let this dry here for a moment. And that's where this comes into place. Just need this piece. We're going to clip off this piece. We're going to paint it. So now that this is all glued and dried, I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and I'm going to put it in the hole. Now that we've attached the tumbling tower pieces, so I can go over the edges.
I grabbed glassware from the thrift store and mixed Mod Podge with food coloring and then covered it on the outside of the glass. Make sure to apply an even thin coat so it doesn't drip. When they were completely dry, I applied a second coat and let that dry overnight. I melted some old tapered candles. I wrapped the wick around a wood skewer and placed it over top. Next, I poured the hot wax into each glass and let it cool.
We are going to make some beautiful home decor items using clear Elmer's glue. We are going to fill this vase with the clear glue. Then we're going to add in some clear and white decorative pebbles. Now I'm going to grab some faux flowers. Now I'm just going to stick these into that glue. Once you've got them arranged just right, set this aside and let it dry.
Quick
trip to my local Dollarama, separate the layers, cut the napkin so that you have enough to cover the body of the jar. Now I'm using some clear glue mixed with a tiny amount of water, paint it onto the side of the glass jar. Then lay down the paper napkin and then using a piece of scrunched up plastic wrap, use that to pat down the napkin and eliminate any wrinkles that way. Draw around the lid because that will be the right size and cut out the piece of napkin, stick it to the bottom of the jar in the same way. Using the same process, cut out a circle for the top and a little strip for the edge and stick it in place. When it was dry, I decided to give it 2 coats of a gloss varnish. I have taken a battery operated puck light and stuck it into the lid of the glass jar.
We need a skinny roll of tape. And we also need some clear Elmer's glue. And our template for today is going to be an outside window. We got to put some of that tape on the window. Now, you can go ahead and take the tape and mask it to the grid that's already on the window, or you can just go random like I'm doing it. But the next step to this is we to grab that Elmer's glue. Once we get some paint in there, all you got to do is just go back and forth with it, and it shakes up really nice. Next, move on to your second color. These are our 4 colors we're going to go with. Now, because it's on the Elmer's glue, it's actually non-toxic, and I used a foam brush to transfer it to the window. It's going to take multiple coats, but the glue and the paint dries really fast. You can actually put a coat on within an hour after you put it on. Once it dries overnight, you're going to take a knife and very gently, we don't want to scratch the window. If you try to pull the tape with it out using the knife, it may pull the glue off. Just go ahead and start pulling the tape off. It's another thing. When you're done with this and you want to change it or just take it off later, it peels right off.
We are going to grab a couple glass mason jars. You're going to grab a small dish and you're going to fill it with clear glue and a little bit of water. I used about 2 tablespoons of glue and about 1 tablespoon of water. Then I'm going to drop in a little bit of food coloring. Then stir it up until it's mixed really well. Grab your mason jar, make sure it's nice and clean. Pour that dark blue mixture into the jar and swirl it around so it covers everything. Once you've swirled it all around, you can dump the excess back into the original container. Now we want to let this drip for a little bit. Let it drip for about 10 minutes. Take a paper towel, wipe off any excess drips that are around the rim of the jar. Then place this upside down on a piece of parchment paper. Pop it in your oven at 175 for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, take it out, turn it right side up, and let it cool completely. I'm going to take the piece of glass out and I'm going to draw a grid of squares and rectangles with black puffy paint. When that's done, I want to let that dry completely. So I'm going to use a little bit of clear glue and a few drops of paint. So on that piece of glass where we added the puffy paint, when it's completely dry, I'm just going to use a popsicle stick and transfer some of those beautiful blue colors onto the glass. But a little goes a long way because you don't want this to run over the black line. Once everything is done, you can grab a toothpick and go back and just pop any of those bubbles that are in there. Then set this aside and just let it be.
Grab some Elmer school glue for this renter-friendly project. First, I gave my window a really good cleaning. Grab some masking tape to mask out an abstract design, and then I'm going to take my Elmer's glue and pour it straight into the tray. Then I just rolled my glue onto the window. I removed that masking tape before the Elmer's glue could dry.
Carpet in my office needed to be replaced, but it just wasn't in the budget. But torn and crumpled paper was. Mixing equal parts of glue and water, I made the paste for the floor. Using a wide paintbrush, I applied the glue to the floor, making sure I got underneath the baseboards. Then I laid down the paper and brushed the glue on top. I continued to apply the glue to the floor, then the torn paper, and then more glue over top of the torn paper. I switched out my brush for a foam roller to cover larger areas, but I kept the brush to use underneath the baseboard. After the glue dried, I applied stain to the floor using a foam roller. After the stain dried, I applied coat after coat of polyurethane. Using a lamb's wool applicator made this process so easy. I made a trip to my local dollar store. Taking a terracotta pot, I draw a very random shape. Taking the clear glue, I pour some onto the side of the pot, picking up some of the blue gravel and pat it down. I then put some of the silver glitter glue around the edge. I'm going to stick these grasses and weeds to this glass. Cut
off these extra bits on the bottom. Now I'm going to stick the tissue paper to the vase. I'm going to use a glue stick and then just rolling it, pulling it tight on this side, some more glue down, and gently stick that in place too. I'm going to go around and just trim.
Head to the thrift store and pick up a set of matching glasses. I'm grabbing a block of candle wax. I'm gonna take this all to the stove, let it melt completely. I'm gonna set it aside and let it cool. I'm going to add wicks to these glasses. Now I can pour the wax into each candle, and I'm gonna let this set for a full 24 hours. Grab a candlestick, grab yourself a little container, and pour in some Mod Podge. Then you're gonna add a few drops of food coloring and just apply a coat over the entire outside of the candlestick. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of blue and then make another candlestick. My glass is covered. Just set these aside for an hour or two.
So we're going to start with this cellophane piece here. So I'm going to make the line here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Put a clear dot, or you could run a clear line. And next, I'm going to go ahead and place the cellophane onto the glue and glass. So I'll go ahead and continue putting the glue and the cellophane up on all the windows.
So I put 2 spoons of cornstarch and 2 spoons of Elmer's glue, and that's what we're looking for. I'm going to use this really lovely mandala stencil. Going very carefully, I'm now going to apply it. The whole stencil is covered, and now for the moment of truth. Very, very, very carefully lift this off. This is the next day now. I left it overnight to dry. Also sanded it very lightly. Okay, just going to give it one coat. I'm going to leave that to dry now.
I took the table apart, separating the glass from the metal ring. Laid the glass on top of the picture. I mixed 2 parts white glue to 1 part black craft paint. I outlined the sun. And once the lines had dried, I cleaned up any lines that were too thick by cutting them away using a utility knife. I painted the background using a 1-inch wide brush. I added designs to each panel. I gave the paint 2 coats of spray sealant. I used a medium grit sanding sponge. I painted the metal bright blue.
I grabbed 1 basket and 10 of these wooden pieces. I set to work staining them using these easy staining cloths. Once they were dry, I set up 2 of the wooden pieces vertically, and then I added the rest of my wooden pieces horizontally. Used some 1-inch nails and put those in place. I had purchased these 4-inch house numbers. I nailed these into place. The next thing I did to finish it up was to add some pretty flowers.
Pick up 2 matching plastic pots from Dollar Tree. Drill holes into the bottom of each for drainage. Then use some hot glue to glue them together. Pick up some of this rope. Use it with hot glue and coil it around. I'm choosing to create an oval. You could also create a circle depending on the space. I used 7 coils of jute. Grab the tumbling tower game from the toy section. You can leave these as is. I chose to add a light stain to mine. I'm creating a flat base with 4 of the blocks. Glue them together with wood glue so they really hold up. Then I'm gonna add legs to the outside. I've created a couple different heights with the legs. Grab a Dollar Tree solar light and one of those tall glass vases. Put the base of the solar light into the vase and then fill around it with some decorative stones. Remove the top of a solar light and wrap some floral wire around it to create a swing. Place this inside a paper lantern. Grab a few small clay pots, place a solar light into the middle, and fill around it with stones to hold it in place. Grab a larger planter, place a few solar lights in it, and then fill around it with rocks.
I had a very old and large flower pot, so I started with some Rust-Oleum spray paint in the color cement. Decided to add a gingham ribbon. Now these flower pots are really large, and it takes a lot of soil sometimes to fill these up. Grab some pool noodles. Cut the pool noodles into small sections. Place all of these sections into the flower pot, and it takes a little bit of arranging to get them into the flower pot the way you want them to look. You could stop here, or I'm going to add a pizza pan to the top of the pool noodles. The water will be able to drain around the outside edge. I add some soil to the top of the pizza pan, and then it's time to plant my flowers.
I'm going to grab me some solar lights. Next, head over to the hardware store. I'm going to grab me about 100 feet of nylon rope. First thing I got to do is blow up this dollar beach ball. Then I got to get out some Portland cement. Make sure it's not concrete, but cement. You want it actually really thin because we need to coat that rope. Now, on that beach ball, just start laying that rope. You're just going to start roping it all the way around. Once you get to the end, what you're going to do is tuck that last bit in underneath the rope. It's going to hold it in place. Then what we can do is move on to possibly adding a little bit more cement. Make sure you cover all that rope. We want it to stiffen up as best we can. Let it sit for a couple hours once we get it covered. Once it's covered, take a knife and just puncture the beach ball. Once we get it all the air out, just go ahead and pull it through one of the bigger openings between the ropes. Now, I want to clean it up. Took a little bit of a plastic fork and just clean up the edges. Don't want anything flaking off. Take a squirt bottle and start squirting all the string, and you're just going to powder it with the cement. Just keep doing that all over. What this does is make it thicker and strengthen it up. We're going to grab that dollar light again. Take out the bottom part. You're going to turn it around, put it in, and that's what's going to stick into the ground. Go ahead and put it right into the ground, right in the area you want to put it. And then you're going to take your string orb and you're going to put it right over the light, right in the middle, and lay it on down.
I have got these melamine plastic plates I just picked up at the dollar store. I've also got a couple of these larger silver coloured plates. That's isopropyl alcohol. I've just cleaned the plate with that. I'm going to take a little bit out of alcohol here. I'm just going to squirt it onto the plate. And then I've got these really lovely, I'm going to drop a little bit on here. I'm just going to move this around a bit to start with. Alcohol on there. There we go. Here we go. A little bit more of that. You can use a hairdryer or a heat gun. I'm just going to go around and around in circles and just see if we can get some nice kind of edges. Okay, now because this is alcohol ink, I'm actually going to seal it with this Kmart varnish. The second version that I'm going to do on these little plates is I'm actually going to use these stick and style stencils. This I've already coated with a second coat of paint. Okay, let's take this stencil off and see how it looks. Our third technique that we're going to create on these plates is going to be, we're going to go full Jackson Pollock. Next up, we're going to use this silver bullet, exactly the same way. We can do that on one of our smaller plates.
So I picked up a couple of these dollar store solar lights and I'm gonna take them apart. I just need that kind of crystal plastic part and the top. So I'm gonna cover the light bulb on the bottom and then I'm gonna cover the solar panel on top and then use a craft knife to cut around it so you get perfectly straight lines. This is a 7-inch basic embroidery hoop. So I'm gonna untwist this screw and put that aside. I'm taking them outside and I am adding a couple coats of a matte black spray paint. Make sure they're fully dry to the touch and now we can assemble. So first we want to remove the painter's tape so that these solar lights work. On the clear plastic part, there are 2 little clips that help attach it to the top. And I'm just going to take some floral wire and wrap it around each one of those clips. Wrap it nice and tight so it hugs the plastic closely. And then I'm able to screw the black part back on top and the wire is still going to hang out either side. I picked this chain up at the craft store. It is actually in the jewelry section. I'm going to thread the chain through the screw and tighten it about halfway. The solar light is going to hang from the inside hoop. So I'm just going to use my floral wire and wrap it around that hoop. Now I can put this middle hoop, the smaller hoop, back inside the larger one. Now once everything's in place, I can tighten this screw.
I have this area in the front of my house that I want to beautify, so I grabbed a bowl from the Dollar Tree and put it over to make sure it fits. Then I went to Home Depot and grabbed some spray foam. Next, what I'm going to do is put the bowl down on a garbage bag and I'm going to grab the spray foam and start covering all the bowl up. And we're going to go layer over layer. Now, this took about 3 cans, but I want to make sure before I put the next layer on, that's a little bit dry to the touch. Once you get it on, you want to give it about 24 hours. The next step is we've got to carve the foam. Now you're going to shape this all over. Next step, I'm going to pour some water into a bucket. I'm using Cementol. What we're going to do is mix it. You want to be able to shape it and use it almost like a clay on top of the foam. Go ahead and just start adding it to the foam and just keep smoothing it on. For the second layer, I made it a little more runny. Just go ahead and smooth it in. If it looks a little rough, you can grab a chip brush, dip it in some water, and then you can start smoothing out the concrete that you put on. Now let it dry, and then I took some black paint, watered it down, and I'm going to add a little bit of color to the rock. So I'm going to add some brown to it also. You can go with any color you want. Now I'm ready to cover up the pipe that I want to have hidden. Headed down to a local Dollar Tree. I'll grab some rope, some clear bottles, and some cool little lights. Just take the hook off the top of the light. Next, we're going to take the bulb off. Next, we need to take the actual light mechanism and pop it out. What we need to do is paint this cover. Now on the bottle, we have a cork here. We can go ahead and just remove that. Next, I grabbed off of Amazon a bottle cutter. Put the bottle on the rollers, and you go ahead and start turning it. What you want to do is hear this noise. That means you're cutting right through the bottle, but it won't cut all the way through. I'm going to show you a little cut line on there. Stick the bottle in the boiling water for a good 30 seconds. Once you got it in there and it's heated up, immediately go ahead and put it in the icy cold water. It's going to separate along the score line, and look at that. Perfect. Takes off the bottom and you got a nice flat smooth line. Put the lights back through our painted cover and clip it back on. Take some E6000 glue and place it around the edge. Take some hot glue and put it in the areas I didn't put the E6000 on. That's going to hold the cover in place while the glue is dry. We're going to stick the lights inside the bottle, set the cover on top, then we're going to take that rope, stick some hot glue on the neck of the bottle, let that hold, and then we're going to start wrapping it all the way around the neck. And then take this extra twine, we're going to put it through the hook. I made 3 of these and we put them up.
The dollar store has all sorts of glass storage containers. Grab a short glass container with a screw-on lid. Take a large marble and glue it to the center of the lid. Next, spray paint both the glass container and the screw-on lid with an ultra matte black spray paint. To style your new jar, take a small wood cutting board from the kitchen and use it as a tray to hold the jar and other beauty products that you want to keep handy. Head to the garden section, grab one of their metal French garden buckets. Give the entire bucket several light coats of overspray with some white spray paint. Now, take a black paint pen. Once the pen is primed, test the width of the pen on the back side of the bucket. Once you get a feel for how much pressure to apply, start to outline the bottom rim of the bucket with the paint pen. Let that dry, and then start to outline the lettering on the bucket. The straight lines were pretty easy for me, but I had to really pay attention when outlining the curves. Once the letters have dried, outline the top rim of the bucket. Next, take some old drawer knobs, perhaps from another project, and glue the knob to the bottom of the bucket with a strong, clear adhesive glue. Style on a bathroom counter beside a sink by filling with hand soap, hand sanitizer, and paper hand towels. When you are in the container aisle of the dollar store, pick up a couple of white wire shelves. Flip one shelf upside down and lay the second shelf on top, overlapping about a third of the shelf. Now take some zip ties and connect the shelves together. Be sure to pull tight on the zip ties so the shelves are securely tied to each other, and then cut the excess zip ties. Remove the rubber tips from the ends of the shelves. Grab each arm on the shelves and bend them from their 90-degree angle to about a 45-degree angle. Next, give the entire shelf unit a coat of spray paint in the color of your choosing. This is the perfect shelf caddy for holding rolled up hand towels and washcloths in any bathroom of your house. I hope this inspired you to take some inexpensive jars, shelves, and buckets from the dollar store and transform them into functional and fun decor for your bathroom. Thanks for watching Home Talk. I'll see you next time.
Does your old ceiling fan need a makeover? Let's give a budget-friendly facelift to this fan. First, turn off the power supply. Grab a screwdriver and remove the fan blades and then the housing. Remove the blade arms, the housing cover, and the mesh inside for cleaning. Once I dismantled all the parts, I dusted them off with a brush. Then I used an all-purpose cleaning solution to wipe off the remaining dirt and cleaned all the parts thoroughly. Before painting, I taped off the areas I don't want to be painted. I used Rust-Oleum White Matte Finish Primer with paint to refinish all the parts. For best results, apply multiple layers of thin and even coat of paint. Next, I grabbed jute twine and tightly wrapped it around the blade arms. This definitely adds some character to this makeover. Then I got this contact paper with wood grain pattern on it. I laid out the sheet and cut it to the approximate blade size. Then applied it to the front side of the blades and smoothened it out. I decided to leave the edges exposed for a unique look. So instead of wrapping the paper, I placed the blades upside down and cut off the edges. Next, I picked up a wide jute ribbon to match the wood grain shade. Applied hot glue and wrapped it around the sides of the housing. Also, tightly wrapped the jute twine around the down rod and hot glued the end to keep it in place. And there you have it, a stylish transformation for a ceiling fan. I hope this inspired you to take a second look at your ceiling fans. Thanks for watching and see you in my next video.
Today's project starts with a pool noodle. Now the hardest thing we're going to have to do on this is to get these two ends to come together. But it's not that hard, and we're going to take a piece of duct tape and use that to hold it in place. Once we got our 3 rings together, we're going to stack them up. Now you can go with 4. I went with 3 because that was the perfect height I needed. Once I get that, I'm going to cut some more pool noodles and they're going to stack inside. We need them to be level with the top. Once we get the perfect height, use that template noodle that you cut and use it to cut the other ones. Use a serrated knife. It cuts so easy, it's just like cutting butter. And we're going to start stacking them inside the pool noodles. Start on the outside and work your way to the end. I went ahead and went all the way around the edges and keep putting them in. Once you get all of the pool noodles in, they're going to get a little tight, but that's okay. Just shove them in there. That is what's going to hold them in place. So when you get to the final ones, just go ahead and cram them down there. It's not going to deform the pool noodles or anything like that. Once you get that final one in, then we need to go back, make sure it's level on the top, and then we're going to go back to the same duct tape, and we're going to use that to cover up. Now you're going to start on one end and go ahead and slice your tape and put it on the bottom. You can wrap the tape around the bottom just a little bit. Go across the 3 pool noodles, across the top, down the bottom. This one I'm going to cut just a little bit longer. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it around the bottom. We're actually going to need to cover the whole thing in duct tape because we're going to need to apply some hot glue to it. So get it all covered up, and then right in the middle, I'm going to put a first dab of hot glue. I'm going to take this rope right here, this cotton rope, and go ahead and put it on there. I'm going to start working it around in a circle. And it doesn't take much, just a little bit of hot glue, but the slow part is right in the beginning. Right when you're starting to put this together, it seems like it's taking some time, but it's going to get faster as you go. You can put more hot glue down at a time and just keep wrapping it. It's actually not that hard, and that hot glue sets up really nice. Now, I was actually able to make this whole thing with just 2 packages of rope, and I got this from the local hardware store. So just keep going. Once we do this top, we're going to work it around the sides and just keep going. If you have a seam where the 2 ropes begin, don't worry about it. As you can see, I went ahead and put the ottoman down, and it actually turned out really nice. It's super strong, and it's the perfect height.
I'm decorating my yard for free. I grabbed a bundt pan from the baking drawer. I just need to fill it up with tap water. I'm using some cake pans and a small pot. I also grabbed some doilies. I also want to slip a piece of twine into the doily. I've grabbed some food dye, and I'm going to put a few drops of red and blue into the balloons. I've taken them all out to the porch, and I'm going to leave them there for a few days. To remove the ice from the pans, I just turn them upside down in the sink like this, ice and run a little water on the pan. For the ice balls, I need to remove the balloons. I like to keep these clear pieces to decorate with lights.
You'll need some empty, used cans. Now that we have the water and ice inside of them, we're gonna go ahead and place them into the freezer until they're frozen solid.
And next we're gonna pick a design, and then you can just start tapping what you want your design to be. So the first thing I have here is a punch and a hammer. You could also use a nail, but you're just gonna basically give it a little tap to create an indent. So for this next step, I'll be using a drill. Now I just place the drill into the can, and I will continue doing this to all of the holes. Now the cans are empty, the ice is out, and take them outside and spray paint them. Now that the paint's dry, I'm gonna focus on the center part of the heart.
Start by breaking apart some filler wax and add it to a pan to melt. After that, melt the mixture. A double boiler is ideal, but if you don't have one, you can use a baking tin or metal bowl on top of a pot with water. Next, grab some crayons and choose colors. Take off the paper and add them to the wax. After that, melt the mixture. Then, grab a recycled carton and unfold it. Cut 2 slits on either side of the top. Wrap the wick around a straw or chopstick to keep it in place. Then, grab some ice. Begin adding ice to the carton mold. Then, pour the wax over the ice and allow it to cool. Repeat this process in all different colors. After they have cooled, grab a towel and carefully cut and rip away the carton.